New MacBook Pro with a brand new keyboard.
We're going to break down whether it's worth your time. Stay tuned for your daily charge.
Welcome to the Daily Charge. It's Wednesday, November 13th. I'm Roger Chang.
And I'm Scott Stein.
Today we're talking MacBook keyboards. Apple's yet another product up its sleeve, announcing a 16-inch MacBook Pro. The new notebook, which starts at $23.99, actually replaces the 15-inch version, and most notably, it comes with a redesigned keyboard using scissor switches, which Apple is hoping will address the criticism it got for its more shallow butterfly switches. Scott, before we get down to the MacBook Pro 16, let's break down this whole controversy. Why is everyone talking about these keyboards?
Yeah, and I've got the MacBook Pro 16 right here. Apple introduced butterfly switches with the 12-inch MacBook, and these keys, which were flatter and meant to compress the key travel to fit into thinner laptops and supposedly be more reliable and better, had a totally different feel that turned people off. But more than that, they've had a lot of failure problems.
Yep.
A lot of recorded complaints. Apple extended its replacement program. Phil Schiller admitted that they've been addressing these issues. So not great. Everything from repeated keys to things getting stuck under them to trying to change the membrane. So now what happens? Well, the MacBook Pro has a new keyboard, and it's a throwback keyboard. This is the Magic keyboard that was on iMacs.
Right, the standalone keyboard.
The
right?
standalone keyboard.
Yep.
It's been around for a while and is a good keyboard. This has been incorporated or adjusted and engineered into this 16-inch Pro, which I guess based on gleaning from Schiller's comments and the story day, this is meant for what pros had requested. I think everyone's been requesting this.
Yeah.
But the question of when this actually makes it into other laptops is unclear. It sounds like it will need extra engineering work, and I'm not sure what that time frame would be.
Yeah, and when I talked to Schiller, I mean, he sort of made it clear that right now they sort of see it as parallel paths. They're still working on making the butterfly keyboard, which is on its third generation now, better, but at the same time, now that they've got this sort of scissor version, he sort of sees it as kind of a pro tier feature right now. I really do hope it trickles down to some of the lower end MacBooks, though.
Yeah, I don't think it's a pro tier feature. I think it's an improved keyboard. I think this feels like my favorite one. It's like a happy medium where it's still, for those who want a lot of key travel, it's not as much as the older MacBooks,
right?
Like the older MacBooks.
Yep.
But compared to, I've got the 15-inch here and the 16-inch, using them side by side, and I work on the MacBook Air with the butterfly one, it feels like it more satisfying. And also apparently the keys can be removed. The keycaps can be removed.
Oh, nice.
So maybe that means better repairability. We don't really know that yet.
I do notice a little bit more space between the keys, a little bit more space between the keys and the touch bar as well.
Yep. So there's a little more space there.
So
also,
less and a physical escape key.
Right, which Apple, was very happy about. That's, the existence of an escape key. I've never seen everyone more excited about that. But it is back, which is helpful. There's a more discreet Touch ID power button. The touch bar is smaller. But the touch bar is mandatory.
Yes.
Which, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not wild about touch bar.
The other subtle thing, the arrow keys, it's an inverted T as opposed to the kind of boxy formation that the newer MacBooks have.
Well, so now you can go back to feeling for it again.
Yes.
It feels a little more no-look intuitive, which is not the way I feel about Touch Bar. That's the problem with Touch Bar to me, is that you can't feel for it. The location of controls shifts.
Yep.
And so any muscle memory you have about that gets really frustrating. Maybe some people love it. I don't know.
All right. In addition, Apple said the Mac Pro, its $5,000 flagship desktop computer, will launch in December.
This is the new Mac Pro.
That's right.
And it's incredible.
That's later than the fall launch date it gave back at WWDC. Scott, I mean, what do you think about this thing? Like, is this enough to win creators back to kind of get them back in the fold?
I mean, it's not for me. It's for people who wanted to spend that much and get that much performance.
And the $5,000 display that comes with it, the accessory.
Oh, yeah, all the stuff you add into the equation that it is a lot. We'll have to see. I mean, Apple's claims about what it can do for performance. If you could afford putting a rack of them together, or you're doing 8K videos or whatever else, I'm sure there are a lot of people that are going to be interested who have the budgets to pay for this. And at least it's addressing the pro market more. But the high-end pro market.
Absolutely. I mean,
This is
these are folks in video production and graphics, special effects graphics.
Yeah, this is like ILM,
Yeah, exactly.
Disney, like people that like can afford big rigs. This is not like, I don't know about home pro unless you. It depends how much money you're making and what your situation is.
Who doesn't have $5,000 to spend on a new computer?
It's worth it. I mean, everything costs. I mean, a Pro Gear is expensive across the board, but I don't know. I mean, that all depends on how it performs in a review, and that we don't have one yet. So I can see that. The question of whether this MacBook Pro is worth it for people depends. I feel like a lot of the specs are much more iterative compared to the 15-inch, though it does have new AMD graphics inside.
Okay. It's a great point, Scott, and that's a great place to stop and see what our audience has to say on these new MacBooks, or are you going to buy a Mac Pro? All right, were you on Team Butterfly? Are you now looking at the Scissor Switch Magic Keyboard as an option? BG, what are the people saying?
First question comes from our old fan and friend Yan. He says, is the keyboard likely to still be the work of Johnny Ive?
No.
Nope.
I mean,
No.
Johnny technically does work for them, but as a consultant now, right? Like has he stepped down yet, or has that happened?
I don't know the time frame on it, but yeah, it's like a consultancy.
Yeah, because he started his own consultancy
Unclear.
that's still using Apple as a client. I would imagine this Johnny Ive does not have much to do with this new
Yeah,
keyboard.
this is a totally different move, and it remains to be seen whether Apple does a full backtrack on the Butterfly. I think they will, but it may take some time. This sounds like it's not going to be quite as easy to go to all of those models.
Yeah, in my discussion with
incorporate it.
Phil, I mean, he talked about these keyboards. Keyboards are tough to kind of design around. They put a lot of work into this new one, but he makes the point like that's why you don't see dramatic keyboard changes in the industry that often. This is difficult stuff, and adding like it wasn't just simply cramming the Magic Keyboard into the MacBook. There was a lot of things that they had to consider. Which is why, like you said, it seems like a happy medium between like the old version and then it's taken some of the traits of the Butterfly keyboard as well.
Yeah, and it is the one that I would rather be working on. But I mean, I have to say though, I use the Butterfly keyboard all the time, and I'm not going to like be an apologist for it at all, or say that it's perfectly okay. But I like using it. I have not had a breakage on my work laptop that has it, but. I have a large forgiveness curve for keyboards of all types. I type on screens.
I think that's what it is for me too. Like I've just sort of gotten used to it, but when I go back to like an older MacBook Air, even with the scissor keys, like I'm like, oh, this is what I missed. This is nice. Like, and generally for my normal day-to-day work, like I have a Bluetooth keyboard that I can't really use this for day-to-day stuff. I have I'd have to have an external keyboard.
Well, that's why I like the new one, because it feels like the clickier, slightly more responsive to me feel that the Butterfly sometimes has, but more ergonomic and better travel. That being said, people are still going to feel like this may not have enough travel for them if they're into bigger mechanical keyboards.
Oh, for sure. And that's the thing. Like in the office, I have a mechanical keyboard that I work on. So like when I go from that back to this keyboard, it is a dramatic difference.
Right. And this is like, I mean, they don't look dramatically different. Like this is the, I don't even know if you can see this right here, but these are the 15 versus 16. And you're going to be like, what? These are just, these are two Apple keyboards.
Yeah. So
but they are different.
Apple says that the difference in size is roughly 2%. Like it's 2% larger for this bigger one. Because they were able to shove more display in with a thinner bezel. And that's why it generally looks, I mean, they look almost identical.
They do, but you can see the difference here if you...
Yeah.
It's let me stack these and see. There we go. I mean, that's something.
Yeah.
That's something. It's not like crazy, but it's a different size. You may have to get a new bag, depending on how tight-fitting the bag or sleeve was.
There you go.
If you had a 15.
There you go.
So if it's not really Johnny Ive, even though he is consulting, it's not 100% his creation anymore. Do we know who else is working on Apple design kind of stuff these days?
I mean, they kind of listed out some of the like Johnny's lieutenants that ended up being promoted in his stead.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you on their exact titles and names.
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
Just a moment, because there's no one. They aren't folks who are as iconic as Johnny Ive. That's the thing. They're not household names. Like if I mention their names, I don't know if that would even register with anybody.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I would say this came across more as like Phil Schiller and Apple's Mac team solving
Yeah.
the keyboard.
Yeah.
There wasn't there was not an iconic designer that was put forward from our end.
But there is a generation up and coming that Johnny is molding and shaping as we speak.
Well, that's hard to say.
Where?
Because
Yeah.
I think the executives that have been put in place are folks that have been at Apple for a long time.
Yeah,
So
there's a
and,
lot
and
of
Johnny,
long-term.
like with Johnny's departure, I don't think he has like a direct hand in molding folks anymore.
I would say Apple's moves this year too. Like there have been several products, not just this new Pro, that have made things a little bit thicker, a little bit more functional. Like particularly the iPhones with battery life, and I think that's a good move. I think this seems like a more practical, not wild and it's not really wild and crazy. We haven't seen products to me that have like been shocking, but they have been a little more functionally minded. So that's a good direction. That being said, there are still a lot of things that this MacBook Pro doesn't have that you might have been looking for. I mean, it still has 4 Thunderbolt ports. You're stuck with those USB-C.
And also
USB-C
no
type
like
ports.
micro SD or no SD card slot, which still annoys me.
That's it. Yeah, no other types of slots. There's the headphone jack still, but a lot of pros want other types of ports, and that's not being offered. So Apple's still being Apple with this. It's just that as far as the keyboard goes, it's a move that should be made.
There you go.
But not just for pros.
Here's one from Tim. He says, with no keynote for the new MacBook Pro, what kind of signal does that send to consumers?
I don't know if Apple needed to do events for every single thing.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah. This might be the start. Throughout this whole year, they've had a lot of products that have come out without events. I mean, earlier this year, the iPad mini refresh, the iPad Air refresh, AirPods Pro was a big one that you think would have shown up at the iPhone events. That's still mysterious to me. I mean, look, you could play all sorts of guessing games. They were supposed to be possibly, according to reports, some sort of maybe there was an October event.
Yeah.
If maybe there was a product that was going to be a centerpiece of that event that was not there, that they decided now that you don't need the event. And I don't know. The iPad is the interesting one to me. Like, if there's there's no new iPad Pro this year, as far as we know at this point in November, assuming there isn't, if it gets pushed into 2020, maybe that was like a centerpiece product that these others would have been there.
Yeah, and we discussed this earlier when the AirPod Pros
Yeah.
came out. We're like, oh, why didn't they have an event for this? This was actually a pretty significant, product. And they launched that as a surprise. They didn't even try to like give people a heads up on that one. So.
No, I mean, yeah, just out of the blue, which was just shocking because that's a really successful product line. So
this could be partly it could be an event that fell through, but also maybe this is just the way that they're going to do these things going forward. For some of their products, not for like an iPhone, but like for some of those products.
Right. And Apple experiments. Like we think of them as like very predictable with these events, but there'll always be a throwing for a loop, like a spring event where the iPhone SE came out, or a Chicago event for an iPad refresh with education, or no event at all where things just pop up and we don't even know about them. So I think sometimes it's like I feel like maybe they're experimenting and just seeing like how that worked, how this works.
Right.
It's a little bit unpredictable.
And keep in mind, they've had a big focus on services this year, and they spent a lot of time on pushing Apple Arcade, Apple TV Plus. I mean, they held an event for those services.
Right.
So that probably took some of the attention and the resources away as well.
I mean, this MacBook Pro, we're still going to do a review, benchmarks, a lot of stuff. We've had it for only a day, less than a day still by our clock at this moment. Look, it is an incremental upgrade. Look, this is the sort of thing where you're looking at the processors being similar, graphics are new, speakers are new, keyboard's new, but like, yeah, I mean, that's a very nice refresh, but it is it's certain things being addressed on the line. I don't know. You don't need an event for that.
Yeah. And I don't know if they necessarily needed an event to like tout the keyboard and bring up the keyboard issues that they've been dealing with.
Right. Well, like how much is it advancing and how much is it backtracking? Like there's an interesting and look, if it gets to a good result, that's great. But this is an existing keyboard that they have advanced into figuring out to put into a laptop. So it's not, it's like a Back to the Future thing. We were saying in the piece, like it's, they're moving to an existing design. It's a strange scenario, but thankfully it's being addressed partially. I can't say that because there's still tons of laptops that have the butterfly keyboard right now, and Apple's just like, yep, they're out there.
All right, let's shimmy back in and take some more questions. Here's a direct one. Does the charger have power delivery, PD?
In terms of
like external, does the MacBook have power delivery or the charger?
Sorry about that.
I believe that's what they're asking, is that there's external power delivery on the charging unit itself, the charging brick. But I'm not sure. Tim, if you want to clarify for us.
Yeah, if you can clarify.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I mean, I know there is a new charging brick for this thing that
it's a 96-watt charger now. So it's a slightly higher
capacity
throughput.
Yeah.
Same size brick. I mean, I'm sorry about that. I'm just being like, in terms of like power delivery, like what are we?
Yeah, if you can clarify.
Yeah.
Thanks.
In the meantime, I like this comment from Joseph saying, the Magic keyboard, really? Magic because it's going back to the OG, stable, reliable keyboard technology?
That's magical.
Throwing a little sauce there.
I mean, it already was called that before, so in that sense, like, it would be really funny if they
But they're just re-embracing that brand.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's very convenient that they are embracing.
It's recognizable, too. Like, people
right,
know what it is. I mean, it's an easy play for Apple.
Yeah. But yes.
Here we go. So other than the keyboard, what other significant improvements are on the new MacBook Pro, if any?
Well, that's the thing. So the laundry list is pretty compact. If you had gotten the refresh that happened earlier this year, I'm sorry, because I can't stand when things like that happen. Where there are refreshes, like it's really weird. But the processors are Intel 9th Gen, look pretty much the same as what had been there before. You've got new AMD graphics, which it's the first time these have debuted that we've seen on a laptop. We're curious how they perform. We want to make sure that we're doing the right things with that, so that's information on that to come. Battery life, Apple, it's a bigger battery, 100 watt hour, which should get an hour more battery life in everyday use per Apple. So we'll see how that actually translates to. Speakers, Apple made a big deal out of speakers and mics. It depends on how much you're really using your sound array on a laptop. They do sound really good, but how much is that worth to you?
They talked about force canceling woofers, was it?
Yes.
Yeah,
there's like a 6-speaker array with these booming woofers.
The idea basically, like, there's less vibration, and so the music is supposed to come out clear. And they did sort of side-by-side test with some competitors, and it did sound better, sounded louder, and clearer.
Sounds like a Star Wars trick.
Force cancel.
That's what they're gonna do to us when the show stops making money.
Wow. Force cancel.
It's a grim term. So
we'll fight it till the end, Brian.
So there's the speakers.
Who am I kidding? We don't make any money.
The speakers are on there, and they're also better onboard mics, which they claim are studio quality mics. That's great, but I cannot imagine anyone who's recording professional audio who's going to say, "Yeah, I'll use the built-in mics on the on the MacBook." You're going to have your own gear, but I guess it's nice if you had to record on them. I think that's like, again, how much would you pay? But it's nice that the base price for these is the same as the previous one. So how much would you pay for the base model would be the same. So that's a nice thing to add, just to throw in. I wouldn't like go running out. And the bigger screen, but it's 15.4 versus 16. So it's not a crazy leap here. That's basically the MacBook Pro. So, and it's a little heavier. It's like 4.3 pounds now. So it's not like a wild and crazy update. It's really a story about graphics, keyboard, sound.
I mean, really ultimately the keyboard, right?
Really keyboard. Yeah.
That's
and if the graphics are a big boost, we'll say it didn't sound like in the description that they were going to be like a rocket to the moon, like you've never seen this before. But addressing the graphics again and updating them is definitely helpful. Again, we're going to see what you can do. The configurations, of course, if you pay for them, will go through the roof. There are now you can now upgrade to 64 gigs of RAM,
Right.
8 terabytes of SSD. If you do the whole combination, it will run you $6,099.
That's a pretty good deal, right?
You only live once.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in the market for a new laptop. The battery on mine from 2011 just died last weekend. What do you think, Scott? Should I jump the shark?
Hey,
No, you should go for the Mac Pro.
give
Brian.
up that Disney vacation.
But I like being
get yourself
portable.
Just bring the Mac Pro with you everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually pretty heavy.
Just put
Go 8
wheels on it.
terabytes or go home. A lot of the price bump is the 8 terabyte.
Yeah,
No
yeah,
surprise. I think it was like 2,000 just to bump up to the final storage configuration.
Seems
they
pretty
bumped
reasonable.
up yeah, right. They bumped up the base storage on the entry model to 512.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's actually nice.
Yeah.
And 16 gigs of RAM standard, unless you upgrade. So that's what you got. Graphics are like 4 gigs standard. You can go up to 8 gigs on the AMD. It's a Radeon Pro 53 or 5500M is the name of the graphics card.
All right, let's get some more questions under our belt. We do have clarification from the prior question in regards to the MacBook Pro charger. Tim clarifies the brick on the MacBook Pro charger. I know the 2016 version doesn't have PD, but with it, say, like when you're charging your Nintendo Switch on the dock, you need PD. He's asking if you can actually swap out other external USB-C devices for charging on the MacBook Pro 2019. Is a proprietary charger.
For charging
Yeah, I don't know.
on the Pro?
Yes.
So the Pro would deliver the charge.
No, they're saying, can you use any other USB-C
Oh,
charging
I see what you're saying.
To
brick?
charge the
other
MacBook
things.
Pro, you
Correct.
mean?
I don't know.
Yeah, we haven't had it long enough to really test it out yet.
Yeah.
That's a good
I
one to
haven't-
add to
I haven't
the
been
list, though.
swapping chargers.
That's a good question, though.
Yeah.
This
Although,
is-
like, with that larger battery, now I understand. With that larger battery and needing 96 watt, I mean, you're gonna. But we'll see. I think it's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we do this. Now we know what the audience wants to know. We get to research it better.
There you go.
Okay, here's a good one from Durain. I hope the keyboard isn't noisy. Scott, can we get a little ASMR going on in here? What do you think?
Oh, it's a great idea. The keyboard is actually quite silent. The Pixelbook Go, I think, is even quieter. But that's a quite different laptop. I don't think those two markets overlap.
Wait. All right. Can they hear
ready?
this?
I'm cranking his microphone, hoping for the best.
Here we go.
This is some
Okay, that's
riveting
getting
video.
weird. Let's stop.
Now, that's really weird. We should do this every episode. Now let's do the 15-inch. Now you can kick back in your favorite comfy chair and listen to me touch keys.
And you know what?
You hear the difference.
You do.
Yeah, you do.
Ready?
Not that either one was particularly loud. I mean, I'll give Apple credit
That's
on
much
those.
quieter.
Yeah,
long
it's
standing,
definitely
but yeah,
quieter.
it's noticeable. So hey, that was a
That
really
is
good question,
much
Duran.
quieter.
Yep.
I feel like I'm in Blue Man Group right now. I'm like performing some weird live
Okay.
on stage.
Scott.
The sounds of the keys. 2 nights only. Yeah, they're much quieter.
Sounds
There you
like a
go.
really bad tap dancing act.
Basically, like if you heard me on the other one, you'd be like, "Ew, it sounds like a little bit like a spider crawling over there. It's a little crackly. But if I'm doing this one,
Yeah, it's pretty quiet.
you can still hear it, but it's a little soft
Yeah.
and hushed. I just love the feel of the new keys so much more. Like it's I'm not going to overlook. They'll have them at like Apple stores. You just like stop in and
Right.
and
They're
you
supposed
can play
to.
with the keys
They're
and you
supposed
can-
to
you
show
can
up, by the
make
way, at Apple stores by the end of the week. So not quite
Yeah.
right away, not today, but if you drop by an Apple store by the end of the week, you should be able to get your hands
touch
on
the
one of these.
keys and
Yeah,
decide for yourself.
definitely.
It's a $23.99 keyboard.
Yeah.
You can also just get the Magic Keyboard.
Yes. Although then
And
you'd have to carry that around with you all the
carry it
time,
in
and
your
that's
bag.
kind of
It is annoying to see it debut and be called a pro feature.
yeah.
And I think that's the part that bugs me, because like having a good keyboard is not just something that pros require or request.
Hey, we got a few minutes left, and before we move forward, Scott, can you bring your microphone just a little bit closer to you? When you put it back down after our little ASMR session, I got you. There we go. That's better.
You can hear my cold infused voice.
That's
up
much
close.
better. That's exactly what I want to hear. Much better than keyboards.
Husky on a Wednesday.
Okay, so if there's a new generation keyboard, can you get a replacement for those butterfly keyboards in the older models?
No.
No. These are very separate
That'd
things.
be an interesting surgery to watch.
This is a whole new product. I think they basically had to customize the keyboard to fit into this 16-inch model. There's no backwards compatibility though. Like
and this new one is not part of that extended keyboard replacement
Good point
program.
to add.
Yeah. So like Apple's doing that for the other keyboards. Again, we're only on day 0 of the new MacBook Pro, so we'll see what issues and replacement things end up popping up. But it's not part of that program.
Yeah. If you have issues with your butterfly keyboard,
it's standard,
and it's covered by Apple. They'll just replace it or fix that keyboard. And Schiller said they're at this point kind of supporting 2 different keyboard platforms, right?
Yeah.
The Scissor one and the butterfly one. So we'll see if the Scissor one actually makes its way down to the MacBook Air or some of the cheaper MacBook Pros. I really hope so, but
I'm curious about like the iFixit and the other reports on this to see
what the teardowns look
like.
To
see what they say about this and see what people see as the repairability
Mm-hmm.
and replaceability options besides what just Apple, obviously not just what Apple says. So TBD. I mean, that's the most interesting part. And I've seen comments from people online where they say like, Apple already with these keyboards has pulled so many annoying moves that it's hard to trust when to get back on the keyboard train. So yeah, I mean, this is day 1, so we'll see how this goes. So far, it looks like the solution that I had been wanting.
So the game plan going forward with Apple will probably be to cycle this in as the standard keyboard for all laptop models. Is that our best guess? They've got to be retiring the butterfly sooner or later. Do we have a timetable?
No. I think that's a thing. That's a pretty big assumption to make right now because
it's a big assumption.
They've
never said that.
What about audience response? Aren't people generally more positive towards the new Magic Keyboard?
Well, here's the annoying thing. One, Apple has said at this point that there's a commitment to both the Scissor and the butterfly. And 2, as Schiller put it, I don't want to paraphrase, but it's specifically listed as a feature that pros wanted.
Right.
So that makes me a little concerned only as far as I think there is a little bit of spin going on that while there's an acknowledgement of the keyboard issues, this is being seen as like the pros in particular want this nice keyboard.
Right.
There isn't an acknowledgement yet, seemingly, that everybody wants this keyboard.
And there are still.
Plus, it sounds like it takes some. Not sounds like it's going to take some time to.
Yeah, there are some practical challenges to fit. I think that's partly why we've gotten a 16-inch MacBook. It's a slightly larger MacBook to accommodate the size of the keyboard, the spacing, and all that. And I don't know if like cramming it into a MacBook Air is like it's not as easy as just like shrinking it down. And I think that's why it might take a while. I think that's probably why they're reluctant to kind of commit to anything at this point.
My theory will be that the Pro lines have the Magic Keyboard, and they're going to redesign and engineer another keyboard
for the Air,
and the compact models or whatever they will be. That they might even rename, and maybe it'll be something else. But they'll say like it has all of the things you like about the Magic Keyboard in a more compact size. Like they may have to like come up with another solution to this. I don't know. Point being that I think it would not be my assumption to say, oh, cool, I'll just wait till next spring and then all the MacBook Airs will all have this keyboard. I mean, that would be great, but I don't. So far, it doesn't sound like that's like a guarantee at all.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of a perfect place for us to land things here today. Before we make any editorial assumptions, sound off. Tell us if you're on the MacBook Butterfly keyboard train, or if you're actually far more interested in the Magic Keyboard. We want to hear what your experience is, especially if you got one in hands, or if you're just speccing it out, considering purchasing one. What are the attractive features? Go ahead, let us know here in the chat, in the comment section, or tweet at us. We're on the Twitter. Before we let you go, though, yesterday after the launch of Disney Plus, We did a little poll to see what people were excited about. I know several of us in the room have already subscribed. I know myself, I watched the first episode of Mandalorian last night.
Yep.
Me too.
Enjoyed it very much. No spoilers. Also started watching Endgame, but it was late and I got sleepy, and that's a long movie.
I just watched the Endgame deleted scenes.
I need to do
They're
that.
nice.
But our takeaway was 65% of our audience was more excited about The Mandalorian. Nobody really on board with the new Pixar series, Forky Asks a Question. A handful
Shocker.
for High School Musical, the series, and Marvel's Hero Project, which are, of course, aimed at a younger audience. And then 23% are just kind of randomly out there in the ether. So, yeah, Mandalorian got the top vote. Thanks everybody for participating. We're going to try doing a lot more interactive poll type stuff and get a better, even more thorough consensus of the audience. So that's where we're going to land today. Thanks everybody for watching. I'm Roger.
Yeah, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you can join us here live weekday mornings. And if you have the chance, check out the links below to learn more about today's topics, and feel free to subscribe to our audio podcasts that are on every platform ever. For the Daily Charge, I'm Roger Chang.
And I'm the super congested Scott Stein.
Thanks for joining us.
Can't get enough? Check out the Daily Supercharge, our extended post show with special features, audience Q&A, and in-depth reviews. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.